His knees hit the frozen concrete before he even realized he'd dropped. The air in the parking garage was so cold that every breath smoked, but the boy in his arms wasn't breathing at all. "Come on, kid. Stay with me. Jack." Hayes muttered, his voice low, steady, like it was a normal Tuesday, and not the worst 30 seconds of his life. Car alarms were still blaring from the chaos a moment earlier. Headlights splashed across concrete pillars as luxury SUVs idled their drivers frozen, staring. Somewhere behind him, a woman screamed his son's name, her voice breaking on the second syllable. There were a dozen people with nicer coats and bigger titles standing there. Not one of them moved. Jack's fingers found the exact center of the boy's chest, like they had 1,000 times in another lifetime. He locked his elbows, started compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, counting under his breath while the world shrank to the feel of bone and muscle beneath his palms. "He's turning blue. Somebody do something," someone yelled. Nobody realized the only person who knew what to do was the guy in the faded orange vest with the word "parking" stitched over his heart. Jack didn't look up. He just listened for that first ragged gasp and prayed it would come before the sirens did. Before I go any further, tell me where you're listening from tonight, and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe courage still matters in this world. To understand how a parking garage attendant ended up fighting for a rich kid's life on a winter night in downtown Columbus, Ohio, you've got to start a few weeks earlier, when Jack Hayes still did everything he could to be invisible. Jack was 41 years old and bone-tired in a way coffee couldn't touch. By day, he was dad to 11-year-old Noah, packing lunches, checking math homework at a wobbly kitchen table, and arguing gently about bedtimes. By night, he sat in a drafty booth under flickering fluorescent lights, waving cars into the underground garage of the Franklin Performing Arts Center. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and steady was how you survived when it was just you and your kid. Most people barely saw him. They handed over tickets without eye contact, tossed complaints about the price of parking at his little window, like he'd set the rates himself. On Friday nights, young professionals in crisp coats would laugh past him on their way to the orchestra, the smell of expensive cologne hanging in the air long after they'd gone. Must be nice, Jack would think, then shove the thought away. Once upon a time, people had listened when he talked. Back then, he'd worn a flight suit, not an orange vest. He'd jumped out of helicopters into black water to pull strangers back from the edge of death. United States Air Force Para-Rescue PJs. The guys who went where everyone else said too risky. But that life ended the same year his wife Lauren did. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy Tuesday, and Jack walked out of a hospital with a folded plastic bag of her belongings and a 6-year-old clinging to his leg. After that, the sky didn't feel like freedom anymore. It felt like something that had taken too much. So he took the first job that let him be home when Noah woke up and when Noah went to bed. It didn't ask for degrees. It didn't ask about the medals tucked in the back of his closet. It just asked him to sit in a booth, take cash lift that heavy metal gate, and occasionally walk the levels to make sure nobody was breaking into cars. He told himself it was enough. Roof over their heads, health insurance, time with his boy. That's what mattered. But the truth was, every time he looked at his hands, scarred, strong, trained to save lives, he felt something quietly rusting inside him. The night everything changed started like every other stale coffee in a chipped mug. Noah's backpack slung over the chair, waiting for morning, and Jack pulling on his thick work jacket as the sun dipped behind the city skyline. At the Arts Center, the marquee lights blazed against the dark. A tech company had rented the whole place out for some kind of private winter gala. Black SUVs lined up around the block exhaust, turning to ghostly clouds in the cold. Jack took tickets, raised the gate, pointed people toward the elevator, and tried not to think about how much one of their watches probably cost compared to his entire paycheck. About an hour into his shift, a convoy of cars rolled up, sleeker, darker, quieter than the rest. The drivers all had the same earpieces, the kind Jack recognized immediately. High-profile security. He straightened without meaning to, watching the rear door of the last SUV. It opened slowly, and a woman stepped out, wrapped in a long wool coat, her face lit by the blue glow of her phone. He knew her name from the news. Everyone did. Behind her, a teenage boy climbed out, tugging his beanie down over his ears, shoulders hunched like he wanted to disappear. He looked for a split second, exactly how Noah did walking into a new classroom. Jack stamped their ticket, lifted the gate, told himself not to stare. He had no way of knowing that before the night was over, that same boy would be lying on the concrete in front of him, eyes rolled back, chest still, and that every skill Jack thought he'd buried with his old life was about to be dragged brutally back into the light. Jack returned to the booth after the initial rush of SUVs faded, rubbing his hands together for warmth. The space heater under the counter rattled like it was deciding whether to live or die. He glanced at the digital clock, 7:42 p.m. If tonight went smoothly, he'd be home by 1:30, asleep by 2, and awake with Noah by 6:15. Not ideal, but it kept them afloat, and that had to count for something. Up on the plaza level, music drifted from the gala, soft strings warming up murmurs of laughter echoing off glass and stone. Down here, it was just Jack, the distant hum of the ventilation fans, and the familiar quiet that settled in after he'd made peace with being unseen. But the peace didn't last. "Hey, parking guy!" A man in a glittering silver scarf marched toward him, waving a valet ticket like it was a subpoena. Jack forced a neutral expression and stepped out of the booth. "Yes, sir. What can I do for you?" "What you can do," the man said, thrusting the ticket inches from Jack's nose, "is explain why my vehicle is wedged between two pickup trucks like it's parked at a county fair." Jack blinked. "Sir, I don't park vehicles. I only manage the entry and exit gate." The man scoffed, scanning Jack from boots to vest to the security badge clipped beneath it, an older picture before the gray near his temples had fully set in. "You're telling me you're not responsible," the man pressed, voice sharpening. "Because you look responsible for exactly this kind of screw-up." Jack felt the words hit harder than they should have. He'd been called worse in harsher places, but something about this stranger's tone, casual disrespect, total dismissal, gnawed at him. "I'd be happy to help you locate the vehicle," he said evenly. The man waved a hand. "Forget it. I'll find someone who actually works here." He spun and marched toward the elevator bank, muttering loudly enough for Jack to hear, "Unbelievable. They'll hire just about anyone for these jobs." Jack's jaw tightened, but he forced a slow exhale. Let it roll off. Let it go. People yelled at parking attendants the way they yelled at drive-through speakers. Half the time, they didn't even see a human being standing there. But as the elevator doors closed behind the man, Jack noticed something else. Two young security guards standing near the wall, snickering. One elbowed the other. "Dude, you didn't tell him that car was parked by the valet service upstairs. Why bother?" Watching him get chewed out was the best part of my night. They grinned at each other and walked off, tugging at their jackets like they were about to stroll into a nightclub rather than patrol a garage. Neither said a word to Jack. He returned to the booth, but his hands were still trembling slightly. Not from cold, he couldn't remember the last time his body reacted to an insult like that. Usually he swallowed it, buried it, moved on. Tonight it lingered. Maybe because he'd spent the last 11 years pretending people's opinions didn't matter. Maybe because it was getting harder. At 8:10 p.m., the elevator dinged, and a familiar figure stepped out Marlene from custodial day shift, bundled in her puffy coat and knit hat. She wasn't supposed to be working now. Jack. She called, hurrying toward him, cheeks flushed from the cold. "You got a sec?" "Everything okay?" he asked. She exhaled heavily. "Just wanted to warn you, management's walking around checking every department tonight. Big event upstairs, big donors. They're on a tear about presentation and professionalism. Already wrote 2 people up for ridiculous stuff." Jack nodded. "Thanks for the heads up." "Watch yourself," she said, glancing around nervously. "They're looking to prove something." He promised he'd be careful. She left quickly, but her warning stuck in his ribs like ice. Presentation. Professionalism. Code words for finding someone at the bottom of the ladder to blame for whatever didn't look perfect. An hour passed, then another, with only the occasional straggler arriving late to the gala. Jack tucked his collar up against the draft coming through the booth window, trying to ignore the creeping feeling that the night had begun in one place and was now drifting toward somewhere darker. At 10:03 p.m., the elevator doors slid open again, and this time a familiar voice carried into the garage. "Noah, slow down." Jack stepped out in alarm. His son came barreling toward him, backpack bouncing cheeks, flushed from running. Behind him shuffled Mrs. Pennington, the elderly neighbor from 2 floors down, who sometimes watched Noah in the evenings when Jack's shifts stretched long. "Dad. Dad." Noah gasped, eyes wide. "What's wrong?" Mrs. Pennington answered, first, clutching her handbag with both hands. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I tried calling, but your phone kept going straight to voicemail." He felt for the cell in his coat pocket, dead. Must have shut itself off from the cold. "Noah, are you hurt?" Jack crouched so they were eye level. "No," the boy said quickly, "but..." Mrs. Pennington fell. She tripped on the stairs and scraped her arm, and she said she was okay, but then her breathing got weird, and I didn't know what to do, so I told him not to worry. "You," she interrupted weakly. "Silly little tumble. I've had worse." But her pallor told a different story. Jack guided both of them toward the booth and sat her down on the chair inside. "When did the fall happen?" "About an hour ago," she whispered. "Can I see your arm?" She hesitated, then rolled back her sleeve. A deep bruise had already spread from elbow to wrist, not from a simple scrape. Jack recognized the swelling classic impact trauma on thin skin, but something else caught his attention, the slow, shallow breathing, the slight confusion in her eyes. He checked her pulse. Too fast. "Did you hit your head? I don't think so," Jack Noah asked softly, voice trembling. He glanced at his son. The boy was pale worry written across his face like a map. Noah had seen too many hospitals since losing his mother. Too much fear. Too much uncertainty. Jack had tried to build a life without emergencies. A life without adrenaline and loss and frantic decisions. "Dad," Noah whispered. "Is she gonna be okay?" Jack swallowed. "Yeah, buddy. But we're going to get her checked out." He reached for the desk phone to call medical personnel upstairs, but the line was dead. Of course they'd shut it down tonight. Too many contractors, too many temporary installations, too much chaos. He pulled his phone out again, still dead. "Give me yours," he asked Noah. His son fumbled in his pocket and shook his head. "I forgot it at home. I'm sorry." Mrs. Pennington waved a dismissive hand. Please don't make a fuss. I'm sure I'm overreacting. I just needed to rest. Jack's instincts flared, quiet but precise, like an old compass snapping north. He didn't like what he was seeing. Older adults could deteriorate fast. Internal bleeding wasn't out of the question. He stood abruptly. Wait here. I'll run upstairs and get help. No. A voice snapped behind him. Jack turned. Two men in dark blazers approached event security. Private hires. The same type he'd seen escorting the powerful crowd earlier. This level's locked down, the taller one said. No unauthorized traffic beyond the ground floor. Jack frowned. There's a medical emergency. I need to get someone. The second guard raised a hand. Slow down. What's going on? Jack explained quickly, efficiently sticking to facts. The guards exchanged a look that made his stomach knot. So, some old lady bruised her arm, the tall one said. She needs evaluation, Jack replied, keeping his voice even. That doesn't sound like an emergency, the guard said with a smirk. We're not interrupting a multi-million-dollar donor gala because one tenant scraped her elbow. Jack felt heat climb his neck. It's not a scrape. She's showing signs of we'll call someone if we decide it's necessary, the guard cut in. But you won't? Jack said, hearing steel in his own tone. The guard stepped closer. You want to keep your job, the tall one said quietly. Then stay in your booth and do your job. Parking, cars, not medical evaluations. Understood? Noah stepped instinctively closer to Jack. Dad, he whispered. Jack put a hand on his son's shoulder. It's okay, buddy. But it wasn't. The guards walked off laughing under their breath. Jack stared after them, jaw locked, pulse pounding in his ears. For years he had taken disrespect and swallowed it whole. For years he had convinced himself that none of it mattered as long as Noah was safe, as long as he could make rent, as long as he stayed under the radar. But tonight, with Mrs. Pennington paling by the second and his son watching everything watching him, something inside him tightened. A coil pulled too far. Dad, Noah whispered again. Why won't they help? Jack didn't answer. Because he didn't trust himself to speak without something breaking loose. Because he could feel the past, the soldier, the medic, the rescuer pressing against his ribs like a heartbeat trying to return. Mrs. Pennington swayed in the chair, eyes fluttering. Noah gasped. Dad. Jack caught her shoulders before she slumped. This was the moment the pressure peaked. The moment the fragile order he'd built around his quiet life trembled under its own weight. Something big was coming, and Jack could feel it rising unstoppable through 20 years of training buried under 11 years of silence. Mrs. Pennington's head slumped forward, and for a split second the world narrowed to a silent tunnel. Jack felt the weight of her body shift, felt Noah's sharp inhale beside him, felt the cold concrete under his knees as he eased her gently to the floor. Her pulse fluttered beneath his fingertips, weak, irregular, fading. Dad, Noah's voice cracked. Dad, what's happening? Jack didn't answer. He couldn't not yet. Every fraction of his attention locked onto the woman lying before him. Her skin had taken on a dull, waxy pallor. Her breathing hitched like a stalled engine. Whatever was happening inside her wasn't going to wait politely for protocol or permission. He brushed his fingers lightly along the side of her neck, checking for swelling temperature response. He'd done this motion in helicopters in deserts, in places where the air smelled of dust and blood and burning metal. He hadn't expected to do it in a parking garage beside an outdated booth covered in scratched plexiglass. Dad. Noah whispered again, voice thin. Jack finally met his son's eyes. She needs help now. And help wasn't coming. Not from the guards who mocked him. Not from the upstairs staff locked behind velvet ropes and donor lists. Not from anyone who looked at him and saw only a man in an orange vest. The old life he thought he'd buried tugged at him, firm, insistent, relentless. "What do we do?" Noah's lower lip trembled. Jack took a slow breath. "We step up." He reached into the booth's emergency drawer, pulling out the small first aid kit he kept stocked far better than the company-issued one. Years of habit. Years of not trusting anyone else to be prepared. He snapped open the kit, scanning its contents, calculating options. Mrs. Pennington's pulse was thready, her breathing shallow, pupils sluggish. Sweat clung to her brow even in the cold. Signs pointed to a much deeper issue than a bruise, possible internal bleeding shock, or a head injury she hadn't realized she'd taken. He needed to elevate her legs. Keep her airway open. Stabilize her until he could get her to real medical care. But the moment he tried to lift her, a voice thundered across the garage. "Hey, step away from her." The tall guard stomped back toward them, swagger in every step, followed by the shorter one, trying to look important. Jack rose slowly to his feet. She fainted. "She needs oxygen and evaluation upstairs. Call the medical team." The guard scoffed. "What are you, a doctor now?" "No," Jack said calmly. "But I've seen this before. She's deteriorating." "You don't get to make that call." The guard jabbed a finger at him. "You don't get to touch anyone. Liability, look it up. She doesn't have time for your rules." "Back away," the guard barked, "or I'll have you escorted out." Jack glanced at Noah, who stood frozen, fear widening his eyes. That did it. That cracked something open inside Jack that no uniform, no chain of command, no corporate badge could ever hold back. "Son," Jack said quietly, "hand me the flashlight from the drawer." Noah didn't hesitate. He pulled it out and slapped it into Jack's palm. The tall guard laughed. "What you gonna play hero?" Jack knelt again beside Mrs. Pennington. "I'm not playing anything." He tilted her head, checked her pupils. The right one responded sluggishly. The left hardly at all. His stomach tightened. That was bad. Very bad. Sir Noah whispered urgently, "Is she—" "She's fighting," Jack said. "And so are we." The shorter guard stepped forward. "I'm serious, stop touching her. She'll die if I do nothing," Jack replied, without looking up. "You don't know that I do." The taller guard lunged forward as if to grab him. Jack stood up fast, faster than he'd moved in years, and planted himself between the guard and the woman on the floor. His voice dropped into a tone he hadn't used since giving battlefield commands. Cold, steady, unshakable. "If you put your hands on me," he said, "you'll delay care to someone in critical condition, and you'll explain that to the investigators later." The guard faltered, thrown off balance by the sudden shift in posture, tone, and authority. Noah stared at his father like he'd never seen him before. Jack knelt again, lifting Mrs. Pennington's legs onto a folded jacket to improve blood flow to the heart. He loosened her coat, angled her head to maintain airway, and spoke softly. "Stay with me, ma'am. Stay awake." Her eyes fluttered. That was something. But he needed to move her, now. He looked at Noah. "Buddy, I need your help." Noah straightened, determination replacing fear. "Tell me what to do." Jack felt a swell of emotion, pride, grief, love, all tangled together. The same feeling he'd had years ago when Lauren handed him their newborn son, whispering, "He's ours to protect now, Jack." He swallowed hard. "Run to the ramp entrance by the east stairwell. If you see anyone tell them we need medical assistance immediately. Don't wait for permission." Noah nodded and sprinted off. Jack slid one arm under Mrs. Pennington's shoulders and another beneath her knees, lifting her carefully. Pain shot through his still damaged shoulder, the one that never healed right after his last mission. He clenched his teeth, pushing past the burn. The tall guard gaped. "What the hell are you doing?" "Taking her where someone will actually help," Jack said. "You can't just try to stop me." For the first time all night, the guards backed away. There was something in Jack's eyes they didn't know how to confront. Something resolute. Something dangerous in its quiet focus. Jack carried her toward the elevator, one careful step at a time, heart thundering from exertion and adrenaline. Halfway there, Mrs. Pennington's head lolled again. Her breathing hitched. A wheezing rattle escaped her throat. "Stay with me," Jack murmured. "I've got you." He pressed the elevator button with an elbow. Nothing happened. He pressed again. Still nothing. Then he heard it echoing from the other end of the garage. Footsteps. Fast, urgent. Noah came charging back into view, waving his arms. Dad, someone's coming!" A second later, two people appeared behind him. One in a crisp navy coat embroidered with the symbol of the Arts Center's executive medical liaison. The other in a tailored charcoal suit, unmistakably from the gala upstairs. And then Jack recognized her. Victoria Langford, CEO of Langford Dynamics, one of the wealthiest women in Ohio. The woman whose son Jack had seen earlier, the boy hiding under a beanie behind tinted SUV windows. She strode toward them, heels clicking sharply across concrete. Her face shifted when she saw Mrs. Pennington, then shifted again when her eyes landed on Jack. His squared shoulders, his steady grip, his absolute refusal to back down. "What happened?" she demanded. "She collapsed," Jack said simply. "She's showing signs of shock, possibly a head injury. She needs immediate evaluation." The medical liaison stepped forward. "We'll take it from H&O Victoria," cut in, raising a hand. "Let him speak." The liaison blinked in surprise. Jack continued. "Her pulse is erratic, pupils uneven. She needs to be upstairs now." Victoria studied him, noting the way he held Mrs. Pennington, the way he assessed without hesitation. Something in her expression softened, not with pity, but with recognition. "Open the elevator," she ordered the liaison. "Override the lock." The liaison fumbled with his keycard. The elevator chimed. Jack carried Mrs. Pennington inside. Noah clung to his side. Victoria followed, glancing once at the stunned guards across the garage. "You too?" she said coolly. "We'll explain your inaction later." The doors slid shut. As the elevator rose, Jack felt Mrs. Pennington's pulse slowly strengthen beneath his fingers. Still faint, but steadier than it had been. "You kept her alive," the liaison murmured. Jack didn't answer. He wasn't thinking about praise or risk or consequences. He was thinking about Lauren, about the last time he'd held someone fading in his arms, about the promise he'd made afterward that he'd never again stand by helplessly while someone needed him. This time, he hadn't. The elevator doors slid open to bright lights, brisk footsteps, and the hum of real medical readiness. A team rushed forward, taking Mrs. Pennington onto a stretcher. "Sir," one nurse said, staring at him with a mixture of awe and confusion. "How did you know what to do?" Before Jack could answer, Victoria stepped forward. "I'd like to know that too," she said quietly. "Who exactly are you?" Jack didn't respond. Right away. He simply looked at Noah safe, watching him with shining eyes, and then back at the woman before him. Someone had just realized he wasn't the man they thought he was. And this was only the beginning. The hallway outside the emergency suite buzzed with the low, controlled urgency of real medicine. Voices, clipped footsteps, brisk machines humming behind frosted glass. But around Jack, everything felt strangely still. The world had moved into motion without him, leaving him standing just outside the door where they had taken Mrs. Pennington. His hands, still shaking from exertion, hung uselessly at his sides. The adrenaline that had carried him this far slowly leaked out, replaced by a hollow ache he hadn't felt in years. Noah clung to his sleeve, eyes wide and searching. "Dad, is she going to be okay?" Jack squeezed his shoulder. "She's in good hands now." Across the hall, the executive medical liaison whispered something into a radio, glancing at Jack between sentences. Nurses stole quick looks at him as they passed, their expressions not unfriendly, just perplexed, curious, like they'd seen something they didn't know how to file away. The two garage guards stepped off the elevator moments later. Their swagger was gone, replaced by a stiff, uneasy posture. The tall one swallowed hard when he saw Jack, as if he wanted to apologize, but wasn't sure how to begin. He settled for silence, hovering near the wall. "What's going on?" Noah asked. Jack didn't get the chance to answer. The doors at the far end of the corridor opened, and Victoria Langford strode back toward him. Her coat discarded her hair, pulled into a quick twist, as if she'd stepped into a different role altogether. She stopped in front of Jack, studying him with a level of focus that made the air feel charged. "They've stabilized her," Victoria said quietly. And the attending physician said whoever kept her conscious during the transition likely saved her life. Jack let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Victoria continued. "They want to know how you recognized her symptoms so quickly. And, frankly, so do I." Jack's pulse stuttered. He'd been waiting for this, dreading it. He'd hoped he could simply fade back into anonymity once help arrived. But the looks around him told him that door was gone now. He wiped his palms on his jeans, buying time he didn't really have. "I've dealt with situations like this before." "That's not an answer," Victoria said gently but firmly. Noah glanced up at his father. He knew there was more. He always had. Jack exhaled slowly. It was a long time ago. Victoria crossed her arms, not impatient, but expectant, as though she sensed the weight behind his silence and respected it enough to wait. Jack looked down the hallway toward the emergency suite, then at his son, his reason for burying everything. His reason for trying so hard to live a smaller, safer life. His reason for coming home at 2 a.m. instead of leaping from helicopters into chaos. "It doesn't matter now," he murmured. "It matters to me," Victoria replied. It was the softness in her voice, unexpected human, that broke the final barrier. Jack let out a breath that felt like releasing a decade's worth of ghosts. "I was Air Force pararescue," he said quietly. "PJs." The medical liaison's eyebrows shot up. A nurse stopped mid-step. The tall guard stiffened like someone had kicked his knees backward. Victoria blinked. "Pararescue, as in the rescue specialists?" Jack nodded once. "I served 14 years. Combat medic, extraction specialist. I was on missions that, well, didn't make the news." Noah stared at him in shock. "Dad? Why didn't you ever tell me?" Jack crouched, meeting his son's eyes. "Because those years took a lot from me. And after your mom," his voice cracked just slightly, "I didn't want you growing up with those shadows." Noah's face softened. He leaned into his father's arms, wrapping around Jack's neck. When Jack rose again, Victoria's expression had changed entirely. The cool, businesslike veneer had melted into something warmer, respectful, almost reverent. "That explains it," she said. "How you moved, how you evaluated her so fast, how you kept her stable." She shook her head, almost laughing in disbelief. "My God, we had a veteran medic working underground in our garage." Jack bristled. I'm just doing my job." "No," Victoria said firmly. "Your job ended the moment you stepped out of that booth tonight." The guards shifted uneasily. The tall one stepped forward. "Sir, we didn't realize," Jack cut him off with a shake of his head. "You don't need to apologize." But the man insisted. "We should have listened. I'm sorry." For years, Jack had accepted apologies like these with a stiff nod, then returned to being invisible. But tonight, something felt different. The words were clumsy, but the shame behind them was real. Before he could respond, the emergency suite doors opened and the attending physician walked out. He approached Jack directly. "You carried her up yourself, yes? You checked her pupils?" "Yes. You kept her conscious until we could evaluate her, when I could." The doctor let out a low whistle. "Well, whatever you used to do, you were damn good at it." Jack glanced away, uncomfortable under the attention. "It's been a long time." The doctor shook his head. "Doesn't look like it." Victoria stepped forward. "I'd like to speak with him privately." The doctor nodded and returned to the suite. The guards retreated toward the elevator. Nurses scattered, murmuring among themselves. Jack stood alone with Victoria Noah, holding tight to his hand. She took him aside into a quiet alcove near a row of chairs. "Jack," she said, lowering her voice, "I know a real leader when I see one. I know someone who can think under pressure, who can read a crisis in seconds, who doesn't panic when everyone else does." Jack shifted. "I left all that behind." "With respect," Victoria replied, "tonight proves that part of you isn't gone. It's just been waiting." He didn't answer, but she could read the conflict in his eyes. "I didn't tell you the whole truth earlier," she continued. "When you helped us downstairs, my son was in the lobby. He saw everything." Jack blinked. "Your son?" He asked me afterward, "Mom, why didn't anyone else help?" She swallowed hard. I didn't have an answer, but I knew I'd just watched a man who could change everything for people like him. Jack's throat tightened. "I'm not a hero." "You are, to Mrs. Pennington," Victoria said. "And to that boy downstairs, and to your son." The words hit him with more force than he expected. Victoria took a breath, then stepped closer. "We're expanding our emergency response and disaster readiness division at Langford Dynamics. I want someone who knows what real crises look like, someone who doesn't freeze, someone who can train my teams the way only a veteran can." Jack stared at her stunned. "I'm offering you a position," she said. "Full benefits. Time off that actually aligns with your son's needs. A salary that doesn't require sitting in a booth till 2 a.m. His heart pounded. Noah's hand tightened around his. The boy looked up, eyes hopeful, unsure, overwhelmed. "I can't just jump into something like that," Jack said. "My priority is my son." Victoria nodded. "That's exactly why I'm asking you. People who understand responsibility, the kind you can't take off at the end of a shift, those are the ones I trust." Silence pressed between them. Jack broke it first. "I buried that part of my life because it hurt too much." Victoria's eyes softened. "Maybe it's time to dig up what still matters and let the rest stay buried." He didn't know how to respond. Behind them, the emergency suite doors opened again. A nurse approached. "Mr. Hayes," Jack turned. "Mrs. Pennington is awake. She's asking for you." Noah released a shaky breath of relief. Victoria stepped back, giving Jack space. "Go," she said gently. "But remember what I said. You have a choice now. A real one." Jack nodded, still dazed, still torn between past and future. As he walked toward the room where Mrs. Pennington waited, he felt the weight of every eye in the hallway following him. Not with dismissal, not with annoyance, not with indifference. With respect, with realization, with something like awe. And for the first time in over a decade, Jack felt the ground shift beneath him, tilting not downward, not into darkness, but toward possibility. Whatever came next, it was already waiting just beyond that door. Jack stepped into the small recovery room and saw Mrs. Pennington propped against the pillows, pale, but smiling in the soft, drowsy way of someone who has fought their way back. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw him. "You," she whispered, lifting a trembling hand. "You stayed with me." He eased closer, careful not to disturb the monitors. Wouldn't have been anywhere else. Her fingers curled weakly around his. "Your wife, she'd be proud." The words hit him square in the chest. He swallowed hard, nodded once, and squeezed her hand gently before stepping back to let the nurses finish their work. When he returned to the hallway, everything felt different. People who had ignored him earlier offered nods of respect or stepped aside to let him pass. The guards who had mocked him kept their eyes down, their shoulders drawn inward. The medical liaison approached, rubbing the back of his neck like a confession was forming there. "I was wrong about you," he said quietly. "I should have listened sooner." Jack didn't gloat. He simply nodded. "Just make sure the next person you meet gets taken seriously, no matter what they're wearing." The man nodded, humbled. Victoria waited near a window overlooking the city, her posture softer than he'd seen all night. When she turned to him, there was no corporate mask, only gratitude and a kind of hope he didn't know how to name. "She's stable," Jack reported. "And because of you," Victoria said. "You didn't just help her. You taught everyone in this building something about courage." He rubbed his palms together, uncomfortable with the attention. "I just did what needed doing. That's exactly the kind of person I'm looking for," she replied. "And whatever decision you make, I want you to know something. What you did tonight. It matters. More than you realize." Noah stood beside her, looking up at his father with a quiet pride that softened Jack's entire posture. The boy slipped his hand into Jack's, as if anchoring him to this new moment. "Can we go home now?" Noah asked softly. Jack nodded. "Yeah, buddy. We can." 2 weeks later, the garage booth door swung open, and Jack stepped out into the crisp February morning for what he knew would be the last time. His orange vest hung over his arm. His booth chair, the one with the lopsided cushion, sat pushed neatly under the counter. He turned in his keys, signed the exit form, and walked out without the heaviness he once feared he'd feel. Because he wasn't walking away from something. He was walking toward something new. Victoria had offered him a position as Senior Emergency Response Trainer for Langford Dynamics, a job that took his forgotten years of service and turned them into purpose again. Hours that matched Noah's school schedule. A salary that let them breathe. A chance to use his old skills without returning to combat. He didn't accept right away. He let the idea settle. Considered whether he was ready to step back into a world that demanded more of him. But every night when he saw Noah's face lighter, happier, more secure, he realized the decision had already been made. When he called Victoria to accept, her voice warmed. "I'm glad, Jack. I think this will change far more than just your life." And now, 2 weeks later, he walked across the Arts Center's outer plaza with his son, both of them bundled in jackets, as a new sun rose over Columbus. They stopped midway looking back at the garage entrance. "That your last time there, Dad?" Noah asked. Jack nodded. "Yeah. Think it's time for a different chapter." Noah grinned and swung his backpack over his shoulder. "Good. You're too good at helping people to sit in a booth." Jack ruffled his hair. "You think so? I know so. By early spring, Jack settled into his new role. He taught crisis scenarios to corporate teams, trained security staff in medical readiness, and reshaped emergency protocols using lessons learned from a lifetime of service. People listened to him not because of his title, but because of the steadiness in his voice, the calm in his presence, the quiet authority of someone who had lived through real storms. Victoria stopped by the training floor, often asking thoughtful questions, staying after sessions to debrief. There was something growing there, gentle, unforced, unspoken. Respect first, then trust, then something warmer that neither of them rushed. At home, Noah flourished. His teachers noticed the change immediately. More confidence, more joy, more ease. The two of them spent weekends hiking trails, rebuilding an old treehouse, stitching their lives back together, one simple moment at a time. Mrs. Pennington recovered fully and became a regular visitor, dropping off banana bread or insisting on walking Noah to the bus stop to stretch her legs. Even the guards from that night sought him out months later, asking for advice on first aid certifications. They listened carefully, took notes, changed because of him. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Jack's life had expanded again. Not in grand cinematic ways, but in the ways that matter. A man stepping back into who he was. A father standing taller for his son. A community recognizing someone they once overlooked. 1 year after the night, everything shifted. Jack stood at the podium of Langford Dynamics' annual safety summit, a polished stage lit in amber hues. Executives, first responders, and employees filled the room. He spoke not of heroism, but of responsibility. Not of medals, but of moments. Not of grand gestures, but of everyday readiness, the kind that saves lives long before sirens ever sound. When he finished, the room rose in applause that washed over him like a warm tide. He stepped off stage, and Victoria met him at the bottom of the stairs, her smile soft and certain. "You did good," she said. Jack looked out across the room, employees, families, strangers whose paths might one day cross his. Then he looked down at Noah, who stood proudly in the front row, giving him a small thumbs up. "Yeah," Jack said quietly. "Feels like we all did." And as the lights dimmed and the applause faded into gentle murmurs, Jack realized something he never thought he'd feel again, peace rising easy in his chest. Because life doesn't always reward the loudest people or the ones with the shiniest titles. Sometimes it remembers the quiet ones, the ones who show up, do the right thing, and keep going even when no one's watching. And sometimes when the world finally does notice, it's not because you changed. It's because you became visible again.